of the rest still, then pulls the door open and thrusts his head out again. He squints, cranes his neck, not quite willing to actually step out into the black night. He almost nods off in that position, leaning like a drunk against the door frame. He retracts his head like a startled tortoise, slamming the door shut and triple locking it. He quickly snatches up the envelope from the floor and scurries over to the bed into the safety corona of the holy light. For the next 10 whole minutes, serenity seems to settle over the village. The soft sounds of families tucking themselves into bed, of lights being switched off with muffled clicks, of restful sighs and duvets being pulled up and heads sinking into pillows, of murmured conversations as bodies snuggle up against each other. And then it comes. The wail that slices through the air in all directions like a cluster bomb explosion. This, people will reflect much later, is the record breaker. It raises the bar for all time on human expression of grief and distress. They just lie pinned in their beds, stunned. The wail goes on and on. It arcs through the Pokulim sky, going in and out through open windows or any crack in the masonry that it can find, chilling bloods and firing imaginations. Joao's wife Jacinta huddles closer to him, her face white as a sheet, and wonders aloud, "Hey, Saiba, how long is his breath?" The arc of sound seems to hit a peak of sorts and then begins to subside. The villagers wait, light-headed from holding their breath. Down, down the sound goes, and then, as if affecting a bumpy landing, breaks up into a series of coughs and gurgles. Then there is a long silence. "He stopped," whispers Jacinta. Joao, who knows better, buries himself under his duvet a little more and ticks off the seconds. "Joao," she hisses, "maybe he died."
That was fantastic. Thank you. Kelsey, just tell us a little bit about how hard it was to write that. I mean, we know that there's a story, and you know what the story is right in the beginning, but the writing process. Tell us a little bit about the process of actually writing this book.
So anyone who attempts their first novel, this is for all of you out here, you will find that your initial effort is going to be something akin to verbal vomit. And it's just going to spew out of your brain, and you will eventually end up with something this thick. And that might take you, whatever, it took me 9 months to actually get it out. And if it had to be published, it would be thicker than the Encyclopedia Britannica. And then it took me 2 more years to actually sift through all that rubbish and get some coherent story out of it. So the writing part was immensely enjoyable because I just love throwing words out. But then eventually whittling it down to something that actually makes sense and is readable to someone else and not me and my mother was the hardest task. And most of it was actually self-edited until the lovely people at HarperCollins came along and kind of nudged me in the right direction and showed me how a bloody book is to be written. I mean, who knows how to write a book? Does anyone? So, well, that was me 3 years ago. So.
Tina, what about you? Is it a similar experience for you when you write? Is it a lot of verbal vomit at first?
So, I write columns primarily, and my problem is the opposite now. Because I'm so used to finishing in 800 words without wasting a single word, all the descriptions that Kelsey, flourishes on. I can't seem to do that. So I'll have to finish and then I'll keep adding, okay, the sunset was turning, from a bruised purple to a mango yellow, whatever he does. But So for me, it's actually it's pretty much the opposite. I'm used to writing very succinctly. And, yeah.
So,
Take a few tips from you.
so Kirsty, what is next? What's the book that's going to happen next, or what's the film that's going to happen next, or what's the collaboration that's going to happen?
Collaboration, I don't know. Inshallah, we'll see. There's a second book out. It's about a third of the way through. I'm just following the same procedure. I'm just spewing it out, and I'll get around to sort of taking a huge axe to it and sort of whittling it down later on. Yeah, it's just that I've suddenly seem to have become a lot busy these days, and I don't have the time to actually write every day like I would love to. But yeah, book 2 is on its way. Wait for it.
That's definitely a pointless conversation. Anyway, I'm going to cut it short because we're out of time. Can we have one last reading maybe before we put an end to
The
this?
consensus is it should end with you, Naseer. But whatever.
I found the last bit extremely moving, and I would like to read that. I asked Kersey if I should, and he said, I don't know because you're giving it away. But the fact is, it's not a murder mystery. I don't think we'll be giving anything away. But it's really, I was very, very moved by this bit. Rosie took care of everything. I tell them, made sure everyone came for the funeral. I think she went around to every house and yanked them out. She looks a bit hollow these days, like that enormous volume of flesh is slowly evaporating inside her. Her skin is flopping around the empty space. She cried the most. Her eyes were hot springs that continually gushed, her mouth forming a miserable little O. And when she looked up to the heavens, as though checking out Ferdy's next stop, she looked like a fat seal about to twirl a ball on her nose. Savio and Angie, they are still around, still fucking. Rosie doesn't know or doesn't care. Someday they'll marry, have kids, grow old, die. No big deal. I'm thinking of inventing a cocktail, I tell them, and naming it after Ferdy, calling it Ferdinand's Fling. Kind of sounds like Singapore sling, no? It's not going to be anything classy, just some coconut feni with 7-Up and mint and lemongrass and lime. Keep it simple yet strong, a bit like Ferdy was in his last days. In the middle of all the nudes, Tracy says, there was one portrait of a man, a thin, long face. That one, it fetched the most. Really, I say, giving them a hint. Story's over, you can now fuck off, pardon the French. Go back to your guest house, hotel, wherever. She says, critics say it was the most expressive, intense portrait seen this entire century or the last. No two views were ever the same. Some saw the most elegate despair, bleakness. Others saw madness. Some likened it to a war victim photo, a man who had watched his entire family massacred. Others said it was a mass murderer looking slyly repentant. It fetched 468,000 pounds, she says. The fat nudes, they were the sideshow, said some critics, as if he was saving up his mojo for this masterpiece, she says. Rumor has it he did a whole series of them, maybe 5 or 6, but no one knows where they are. If they are found, they will be priceless. After he dies, even more. The man in the portrait, she says, looks like that man up there. She points to my wall. Looks like that painting. They leave. I clean up. Who would have thought, I muse, Ferdy and his daft love story. New leathery skin and fresh mojo notwithstanding, still Ferdinand. Invisible in a crowd of one. Insignificant as an appendix. Useless as a wet dick. Boring as a nun's dream. Irony, I tell myself, I will probably never sell that painting. But I may sell the others if I can get them back. I gave 2 to Angie, 1 to Rosie. The 2 Angie has, one of them is of a man shuffling down a road, bent over with defeat, yet going on. The other, a thin, tall man staring into the coffin of an enormous lady. They give me goose flesh every time I look at them. The look and expression on that man's face. Experts will join the dots, say it's the same guy, the one that went for how much? Alive, worth 468,000 pounds. Dead, 3 times that. Bloody hell. I should have such choices for everything in my life. Rosie has made hers into a shrine, candles and incense and fresh flowers every day. The most expensive shrine in the world, not from the candle giving it that old gritty feel over the years, of an old man singing in a choir, his face etched with lines of devotion and bliss, staring up into some golden halo light into the high recesses of the church. All I told Don Pedro was, no nudes, so he gave me the others. I can easily wait for the fucker to die if I'm greedy. He won't last long in retirement. Guys like him, they're like great whales, great whites, need to keep moving, otherwise they die. Water stops moving past their gills, they die. But waiting might be a folly now. I must try and get the other paintings back somehow before the girl, what's her name? Tracy, before she goes back and shows her art teachers the photo. The photo of the portrait on the wall. Before the collectors and gallery owners and art thieves from all over the world descend upon my little village, sniffing around houses, pulling stuff off walls, tearing down shrines.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We're now just going to open it up for a few questions from the audience. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand and we'll try and get you a mic. Yes. Yeah, like that.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
My question to writer is, normally it is observed and noticed that when writer doesn't write for the film, he is not considered to be a writer. What you have to say?
Sir, could you please repeat the question?
If a writer doesn't write for a movie, so he is not being considered as a good writer. And what is the difference between writers, those who write for the films or...
Casey, why don't you...
Well, a writer is a writer actually. Whatever he writes, he could be writing travel articles, he could be writing opinion pieces, he could be writing a novel, he could be writing a screenplay, he could be writing poetry. I think a writer is just a writer. It's just a different genre that he or she experiments with, and that is what separates them. Sometimes the lines are blurred. Prose writers write poetry, screenplay, travel articles. I don't write poetry, but I do the others. So I think anyone who says that is talking through his hat.
And what about the young generation? It is going away from the, what is the reason?
I think there's more money in film, sir. There's a lot more money in film, so a lot of people are going towards film. Nobody has the time to read books anymore. So perhaps prose writing is on a decline because of that. And I think it's the lure of money which is making young kids go for movie writing these days. And that establishes them as writers as well. You know, so it's a choice that they make.
Do you blame internet also? People get
I
information.
think maybe we should have questions from some other guests as well. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, hi Twinkle, this is Sonia here. Twinkle, we have seen a lot of movies have been adapted from books, and you have written Mrs. Funnybones, which is a story of a daily life of a woman. Would you like your book to be adapted in a film someday?
I think it would be a sort of tragic comedy. My mother-in-law will commit suicide because I've depicted her as this, sort of crazy old bat. So yeah, I don't think they'll ever make a movie of that.
Twinkle, I have a question for you. You said you're not romantic, you're practical. How is Akshay? Is he a die-hard romantic or is he as practical as you are?
I don't know who Akshay is. Thanks.
Yeah, let's stick with the conversation at hand. Any other questions?
Yes, Twinkle, the question is for you. When we talk about the village of pointless conversations, so in Bollywood, do you think many relationships, come to a pointless end, and which is why we are seeing so many breakups in 2016?
No.
What is your take on this?
I'll ask Naseer to answer that.
Yeah, the answer is no. Next question.
Yes, please, Mahesh, go ahead. Yeah.
Now, this is going to be a difficult one.
Not at all, just bring it back to sanity, I guess, or insanity. Homie, Pierre-san, you both know South American magical realism. Were you both influenced by this?
I don't.
You don't? Well, homie does.
Never read Marquez in my life.
Yeah. That, I'm just saying, was there an influence within the writing and the conception? I know even in the film there wasn't.
I think as much as Casey denies it, he's extremely influenced by it because of what all I have told him about Marquez since he can't read Marquez.
There's another quick one actually for the publishers. Just listening to Naseer read like this, don't you think there's an opportunity to put out a red book by, something like this?
An audio book, Kartika,
An audio
maybe you
book.
can answer that.
Sure, I charge a lot of money for that.
Any other questions?
Hello. Yeah, Mr. Kersey, my compliments to you for bringing out the Goan culture in its authenticity. I just want you to share, I want you to share with us that how is it that you are so diligently conversant with the Goan culture? Like, you use the, the nuances like Saiba and stuff like that.
I'm going
He
to hand
does
over the
drugs
question over-
regularly.
Oh, sorry, you're still waiting for my answer? No, I actually have spent some time in Goa like everyone else, and if you just listen to any auntie or uncle speak over there, and you can just assimilate their voice into your speech, and literally that's it. And if you just pick up a book on Mario Miranda cartoons, you will know everything you need to know about Goa. You get the toddy tappers, you get the taverna thing, you'll get somebody called Petrocius Pimenta di Bartoloso, whatever, So it's just pick up a book on Mario Miranda, and that'll be enough for you to fake a novel on Goa. That's what I did.
I feel like I should cut it now before anyone says anything else.
I'm just seeing the headline tomorrow.
Hi, Kirsty. It'll be on Twitter before that. Go
All right,
ahead, maybe
Brinda,
we'll take a
we
last
didn't call
couple.
you here to ask questions, just to drink.
When I was attempting to write a script once, I remember I had this conversation with you because you had written several scripts by then. And I asked, because I was,
Are you on drugs?
do you want a serious question or not? So I remember I asked, when I was doing the script, I was going for script writing classes and I was reading books and I was trying to figure out the process. And you told me that, so I asked you what was your process, and you said that you didn't want to know, you didn't want anyone to tell you, you didn't want to read about it, but you just wanted to figure it out as you went along. So my question still remains, that was several years ago. I think it was at Blue Frog or something. My question remains, which is that, yeah, you probably didn't remember, that after several scripts and now a novel, is that still the way you function? Do you have a beginning, middle, and ending in mind before you actually start writing it, or is it something that just gets revealed in the process?
Okay, so first of all, several scripts. I've just written 2 actually. I'm still writing my third one.
Several?
Yeah, sure, that's more than one. I still don't know how to write a screenplay. My sensibility is purely prose, and I make screenplays fat and turgid things which give directors pounding headaches when they go through them. So I still don't know jack about writing screenplays. I'm still learning. Hopefully I'll get it right one day. But don't go to school. Just figure it out on your own. Honestly, it's just easy. It's just telling a story. And instead of going into the atmospherics of the surroundings, just focus on trying to make your story clever through dialogue. That's it. Was that your question, or am I just...
No, it wasn't, but that's okay. No problem.
People are shaking their heads saying, no, that wasn't the question. I don't have a process now, Brindy. I don't have a process. I just start and see how it goes.
Okay, we'll do maybe one last question, if there is one. No? Okay, so I think we can say thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the audience.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Nasir, for coming and making this